Got the whole world in his hand. Hey, I'm just sitting here on my porch just looking. What am I looking at? I'm looking to the hills from whence cometh my help. For my help, some of y'all know the rest. Um, I just wanted to come on and just tell everybody, just be as calm as you can.
It's the kind of story that makes Hollywood hold its breath. Not a PR stunt, not a petty feud, but a full-blown $260 million lawsuit targeting one of the most powerful names in entertainment. Actor Derek Dixon just filed legal papers against Tyler Perry, accusing the media mogul of exploiting his dreams, manipulating their relationship, and crossing lines that should have never been touched. The headlines are explosive, but it's what's in the details, the texts, the late-night visits, the unspoken expectations that's sending shockwaves through the industry. Derek isn't just throwing out accusations, he's naming names, dropping timestamps, and releasing messages that suggest the story is deeper, darker, and more calculated than anyone imagined. What started as a chance encounter in 2019, a promising conversation with Perry after an event, followed by a small acting role, quickly spiraled into something that looked a lot less like mentorship and more like manipulation. Derek says he thought he was getting a shot at his big break. What he claims he got instead was entangled in a power dynamic that left him feeling used, pressured, and confused. And if you thought this was just one man's word against another, think again. Derek says he has the proof. Screenshots of private messages show a side of Tyler Perry that few have ever seen: intimate, persuasive, and unsettlingly persistent. Messages filled with spiritual guilt, suggestive innuendo, and subtle power plays. This isn't just about Hollywood ambition. According to Derek, it became about control, blurred lines, and emotional leverage. And the moment this lawsuit dropped, that's when Monique stepped back into the chat with audio, commentary, and no sympathy to spare. The timing couldn't have been more explosive. Just days after Derek's lawsuit hit the press, Monique, the Oscar-winning comedian who's never been shy about calling out Hollywood hypocrisy, came forward with a reminder. She warned us. Monique didn't just post a caption or tweet a quote. She dropped audio of a private conversation with Tyler Perry, a call where he allegedly promised to make things right with her during his next press tour. That apology, according to her, never came, but the damage had already been done. Years of lost work, shattered deals, and an industry-wide freeze that left her branded difficult without ever getting a fair shot. And now, with Derek Dixon stepping into the spotlight, Monique's words are hitting different. Her caption was more than a tribute to the late Angie Stone. It was a warning letter aimed straight at Tyler. She reminded him that justice doesn't die with silence and that unfinished business always has a way of coming back around. "We stand on the shoulders of our elders," she wrote, "and the fight doesn't end with your passing, it's just the beginning." What's even more jarring is how Derek's story started to mirror a pattern. He says Tyler promised him the Hollywood dream: fame, success, stability, but instead he got a 2-episode appearance on Ruthless and a whole lot of unspoken expectations. Behind closed doors, things were different. Allegedly, there were late-night invites to Tyler's home, moments where the lines between professional and personal blurred, and uncomfortable advances masked as mentorship. And this is where it gets messier. Because Derek's story isn't just about career disappointment, it's about emotional entrapment, spiritual guilt, and the subtle art of keeping someone close without ever setting them free. Derek says it started with trust, the kind of trust you place in someone powerful when they open the doors to their empire. In January 2020, Tyler Perry allegedly invited him to his Atlanta mansion, suggesting they connect off-set. At first, Derek believed it was a professional gesture, maybe even a chance to build a stronger working relationship. But according to him, things took a turn the moment he let his guard down. He claims he had too much to drink that night and ended up crashing in a guest room. Nothing unusual in Hollywood circles, but what followed left him rattled. Derek alleges that sometime during the night, Tyler entered the room uninvited and climbed into bed beside him. Then, he says, it got physical, a touch on the thigh, a suggestion, a moment that Derek insists he shut down immediately. But the atmosphere had already shifted, and from that point on, the dynamic between them was no longer the same. He tried to keep things civil, hoping it was just a misread moment, something they could both move past. But the signals didn't stop. The next few weeks, Derek claims the messages from Tyler became increasingly suggestive. Questions about his preferences, emotional nudges, even spiritual advice cloaked in flirtation. The most unsettling part? Tyler allegedly told Derek he reminded him of someone loyal and dependent. The exact kind of character he had just written for him in The Oval, a homeless gay man surviving by attaching himself to others. And that's when Derek says he started realizing this wasn't just casting, this was grooming. And it wasn't about talent anymore, it was about access, submission, and control. Derek says he wanted to believe it was over, that shutting it down once would be enough. But in his lawsuit, he paints a different picture. He claims Tyler kept the door open, continuing to blur the lines between personal interest and professional promises. Flirty texts allegedly kept coming, each one dripping with mixed signals. On the surface, they read like check-ins. But between the lines, Derek says it felt like a test, to see how far he'd go or how long he'd stay quiet. By mid-2020, the power imbalance was undeniable. Derek had landed a bigger part in The Oval, and on paper it looked like he was finally catching a break. But off-camera, he says the situation only intensified. There were more invites to Atlanta, more tension. And then came a moment that Derek claims changed everything. He says during one trip, Tyler's tone shifted completely. According to Derek, the conversation turned overt. Questions about whether he liked it rough, sudden grabbing, and a disturbing comment that left him frozen. "Look how excited you just got." Derek insists it wasn't flirtation, it was pressure. And he says it made him realize that his rising role on screen came with a silent cost. He didn't quit, he didn't make a scene. Instead, he played it safe, smiled on set, stayed respectful, because in his words, he knew how fast things could vanish in Hollywood, especially if you cross someone that powerful. But Derek wasn't just trying to protect his job, he was trying to protect himself. And still, he claims, it didn't end there. By June 2021, what had once been subtle became something else entirely, and what allegedly happened next at Tyler's Atlanta guest house would leave people stunned. According to Derek, the night in June 2021 wasn't supposed to be anything unusual. He had been invited back to Tyler Perry's Atlanta property and was staying in the guest house, a familiar routine by that point. He says he was winding down for the night, dressed down, half asleep, when things suddenly escalated. Derek alleges that Tyler entered unannounced under the pretense of saying goodnight. But instead of a casual gesture, Derek says the moment turned physical. He claims Perry reached for his waistband, pulled at his underwear, and made intimate contact. When Derek tried to redirect or diffuse the situation, he says Tyler urged him to just let it happen, insisting it wouldn't hurt and that he needed to relax. For Derek, that moment wasn't just uncomfortable, it was traumatic. He says he tried to laugh it off, change the subject, anything to escape without confrontation. He didn't scream, he didn't fight, he just left as soon as he could, because in that situation, with his career on the line and his safety in question, Derek says survival meant silence. But even as he distanced himself, he says the messages kept coming. The tone bounced between apologetic and possessive. There were moments of Tyler allegedly blaming his behavior on alcohol. Other times, he'd wax poetic about Derek's beauty or suggest he was missing out on emotional intimacy by holding back. And then came the guilt trips. Derek says he was told not to let others on set know about their friendship, to protect his reputation and avoid foolish questions. But to Derek, that wasn't protection. It was control disguised as mentorship. And he began to realize if he didn't speak up, the cycle would never stop. When Derek released the screenshots, the internet exploded. These weren't just casual exchanges between two colleagues. They read like something far more personal, far more complicated. Tyler's alleged texts mixed spiritual guilt with emotional intimacy, leaving fans stunned by the contradictions. In one message, he asked Derek, "What's it going to take for you to have guiltless intimacy?" A line that set off alarms across social media. Derek's response? A half-joking deflection about needing to become a Buddhist to shake off religious guilt. But Tyler's reply made it clear he wasn't joking. "You can still believe in Christ and be free," he allegedly wrote, framing the conversation like a path to healing or persuasion. Other texts leaned even further into the personal. At one point, Tyler asked if Derek's "no" had gotten stronger, referring to his ability to set boundaries. When Derek mentioned his mother's fear he'd sell his soul to the Illuminati, Tyler laughed it off, but kept pressing. There were even moments of jealousy. According to Derek, after posting photos from a shoot with another man, Tyler messaged him about it, hinting that he wished he had been in the photo himself. "You're so beautiful. When you unlock your mind, you're going to make that person crazy," he allegedly texted. But perhaps the most unsettling moment came when Tyler referenced someone else, another powerful figure now in prison, suggesting that he was the only one who could have gotten Derek an Oscar through intimacy. Whether it was a joke or a threat, fans weren't laughing. Each message chipped away at the image many held of Tyler Perry, the mogul, the role model, the moral compass of Black Hollywood. Now, people were asking, what else has been hidden behind the empire? As the screenshot circulated, so did a sense of déjà vu. People began pulling receipts from years back, revisiting interviews, Instagram lives, and cryptic statements from other actors who'd worked with Tyler Perry. One name kept resurfacing: Christian Keys. In 2023, Christian went live and told a story that sounded eerily familiar. A young actor, early in his career, invited into the orbit of a powerful Hollywood figure who allegedly pushed boundaries under the guise of mentorship. Christian never named names, but he spoke about being invited to a lavish party where the drinks were flowing and the energy suddenly shifted. He described fending off uncomfortable advances and feeling trapped in a situation he didn't sign up for. At the time, people speculated about who the Hollywood billionaire could be. But now, with Derek's allegations out in the open, many fans believe Christian had been trying to sound the alarm all along, just in a quieter, safer way. The whispers grew louder. Suddenly, Tyler's public image, the generous philanthropist, the devout Christian, the studio mogul, was clashing with something far more complex. Derek wasn't just airing out personal drama, he was pointing to a pattern. A cycle of alleged behavior where vulnerability was mistaken for opportunity and ambition was met with manipulation. And in the background, Monique, watching, listening, letting it all play out. For years, she claimed Tyler had sabotaged her career because she refused to play by his rules. She said she was punished for saying no. And now that another actor was saying the same thing, her warnings were no longer brushed aside as bitterness. They were being re-examined as prophecy. As Derek's lawsuit gained traction, the entertainment world split into two camps. On one side were those who rallied behind Tyler Perry, calling the claims outlandish, accusing Derek of chasing clout, and pointing to Perry's decades of philanthropy and success as proof of character. On the other side, a growing number of fans and industry insiders who said this moment had been brewing for years. To them, this wasn't random, it was a reckoning. Monique didn't say "I told you so," but she didn't have to. She let the facts speak for themselves, reminding people of how she was iced out after refusing to promote Precious for free, how Tyler allegedly called her difficult behind closed doors, and how her career dried up seemingly overnight. And even 50 Cent, known for stirring the pot, once said Tyler owed Monique more than silence. Now people were connecting the dots. Meanwhile, Tyler Perry's legal team came out swinging. They called the lawsuit a money grab, a calculated attempt to weaponize trust. They insisted the texts were taken out of context and that Derek had pursued a friendship, even intimacy, on his own terms. They painted Derek as an opportunist, someone who got close to Perry for reasons that were never entirely pure. But the court of public opinion was far less black and white. Screenshots don't lie, but intentions can be twisted. Derek's messages show moments of humor, confusion, hesitation, not the clean-cut narrative of victim or villain. And that's what's got people stuck, because if these accusations are true, it's not just about Derek and Tyler. It's about the quiet, complicated spaces in Hollywood where power, vulnerability, and silence collide, and where careers can rise or fall based on what you're willing to endure. Derek Dixon isn't backing down. With a $260 million lawsuit now in motion, he's making it clear that this isn't a publicity stunt. It's a battle for accountability. He says his goal isn't just a payout, it's exposure. According to Derek, the pressure, the manipulation, the blurred boundaries, they weren't isolated incidents. And he's hinting that others in the industry have been through the same thing, but are still too afraid to speak. What makes this different is the evidence. Derek didn't just drop vague allegations, he came with receipts. Dozens of text messages that paint a picture of emotional entanglement, blurred professional lines, and subtle coercion. Messages where intimacy is dangled like bait, where mentorship feels more like a trap, where saying no becomes a risk, and silence becomes survival. And it's not just about Derek anymore. People are revisiting old interviews. They're dissecting social media posts, rewatching past interactions, and wondering who else might be holding similar secrets. The internet is now deep in speculation mode, digging into past collaborations and questioning how many others may have stayed quiet to protect their careers. Even Tyler's most loyal fans are struggling to process it all, because if the man who built his brand on morality, resilience, and faith is capable of what Derek describes, then what does that say about the industry itself? This isn't just one man's downfall or one actor's rise. It's the kind of story that challenges public image, disrupts power dynamics, and forces everyone watching to ask, what are we willing to ignore when someone is beloved, wealthy, and powerful? And if others step forward, this could turn into more than just a lawsuit. It could become a full-blown movement. As the headlines settle and the legal gears start to turn, one thing is clear. This isn't just about Tyler Perry anymore. It's about what happens when image, influence, and unchecked power collide behind the scenes. Derek Dixon's lawsuit has cracked open the facade of Hollywood professionalism, exposing something raw and uncomfortable, that sometimes the people building empires are also building walls to keep others silent. Tyler's team continues to deny every claim, calling the lawsuit a calculated attack and labeling Derek's story fiction wrapped in scandal. But outside the courtroom, it's the internet, not the judges, that's keeping the conversation alive. With every leaked message, every resurfaced interview, and every new thread of speculation, the pressure builds. Fans are rethinking everything they thought they knew about one of the industry's most untouchable figures. And then there's Monique, the veteran voice in the background, who warned everyone years ago. For her, this isn't about revenge, it's validation. She was labeled a problem, a diva, a threat, but now people are seeing that maybe she was just the first to say enough. What happens next depends on whether more voices join the chorus. Derek says he's not alone, and if that turns out to be true, the industry might be facing more than just a PR crisis. It could be looking at a cultural shift, where status no longer shields you from scrutiny, and where silence isn't survival but complicity. For now, Hollywood waits. Tyler Perry's reputation hangs in the balance. Derek Dixon's voice is louder than ever, and the audience, they're not just watching, they're paying attention. Because in an industry built on stories, this one just might change the ending.